Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Dave Brown here with JamPlay.com, and this is week 2 of playing the changes. Last week we took on the one chord, obviously not playing the changes when you only have one chord, but we're going to build up to it. Today we're taking on the 4 chord, which is, again, they're all the same shapes because it's still the same product. It's still a major chord. So we're going to see how that layers in all 5 positions. We're going to play through the same exact lick that we learned last week in all 5 positions. But that'll be the bare minimum requirement for those of you who are just new to layering these. Obviously, we're dealing with a whole variety of people who might be watching this lesson. So, as always, I like to give tiered options. We'll talk about just kind of improvising a little bit, hopefully, if we have time. And yeah, other keys, all that fun, some bonus exercises. So let's get at it. We're just going to jump right in. Again, we're in the key of D. So that was the C shape option for us. Again, I'll just try and explain it really quick. Pinky on the 5th fret, 3rd fret, hammer into 4 up to the 5th, 2nd fret on the 3rd string, which is the 5th scale degree. 6th scale degree, which is the 4th fret. And then you got your root up on top. You're coming right back down, and the middle finger's gonna grab that 3rd fret on the 4th string, pull off, 5th fret on the 4th string. So some of these voicings are going to be recommended. For the C shape, it's going to be this. For this, it's going to be the C shape. You can also do the middle 4 for the C shape. You can do all 5. There's really no rules as long as you're grabbing some of it, if not all of it, and just really understanding that shape that you're trying to outline when you play that scale. So if you've ever played a 1-4-5 or even just 1-4 in open position, the same open chords are going to line up the same way. So for instance, if you have a C chord and your 4 chord in the key of C is F, but that F is really an E shape. So the same thing is going to happen here. We're going to have a D, and then relative to this D, you're going to go down a whole step onto the 6th string. You're going to have the E shape, okay? For the E shape, we have 2 options, 2 full licks that we can play. That was the first one from last week. My apologies again if you were did not tune in last week. You should go back and learn these, but it's not the end of the world as long as you understand the shapes. It's just what you want to pull out of the lesson. You got that one too, starting on the 5th fret of the 4th string, sliding 3 into 4, 3 and 5, back down. First finger is going to roll over from that 3rd fret on the 2nd string to the 3rd fret on the 3rd string. Slide 3 into 2, and then you got the root. For these, you can do a full bar chord even. I'm recommending middle 4 or the top 4, just to kind of get comfortable with it. You got 4 bars each, so in theory, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with it. What's technically written is riff and then chord twice. So So basically there's 4 bars each. You can think riff, chord, and then switch to the 4 chord, which is the E shape for the G chord. In this position, there's going to be 2 octaves that you can do that riff, so I'll do both. But in theory, later, if you really need more time with the licks, just do the licks 4 bars in a row, and then switch to the other one. I also recommend kind of just practicing it without the backing tracks and just doing 1 bar each with the licks so you can really see how they line up. Like, same with the chords. You could just play the chords over it too if you want to just practice the chords. We're going to do what's written on the page. Sorry for scatter. There's a bunch of stuff I wanted to get through today, and we're just going to play it. Here we go. Key of D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. Yeah, that's the appropriate. Do over. We're doing it over. guys. Back to going to G. You get the idea. Again, my apologies if you don't have these under your fingers. We're kind of plowing right through it. But if you do, hopefully that makes sense. You're just lining them up and you're playing them back and forth. You know, nothing too crazy. It is good, you know, to play it as written. But again, these are just jumping off points. This lick isn't the say all end all for what you want to do with this. We'll come back around to each position in a little bit and talk about kind of having a little more fun with it. Again, sometimes, I was playing just this or even the full thing. As long as you're seeing the shape that you're outlining, we're good. Okay, moving on to exercise number 2. It's just moving up the neck into the next position. After the C shape comes the A shape. A shape's lick is going to start on the 5th fret of the 5th string with your middle finger. Jump back to the 3rd fret and slide into the 4th fret with your index. You'll grab that 7th fret with your pinky, 4th fret, and 7th fret with your index and pinky on the 3rd string. Then kind of stretch your ring finger. This is basically very similar to that E shape lower end. And then for the chord, you know, you can just do the regular old bar chord. You can try to get the top notes. I wouldn't beat yourself up over that one though. I would probably just stick the regular bar chord as long as you're seeing that. When you're in open position and you're playing an A chord, your 4 chord's D, so that's not going to change here. We're going to go to that D shape. D shape is going to have 2 of them, if you guys remember from last week. Technically, it's, you know, we're thinking about placing the D shape off of the 4th string. So again, just to recap, if you're trying to think about where to place these all have different roots. I'll come back to that. I just want to keep going through. We'll talk about placement a little bit again to review. So just to, you know, quickly find these shapes regardless of what key you're in. You don't want to just memorize shapes. You want to be able to find any of them anywhere. Great, awesome. So you have this D shape here. You could also do this power chord shape. So this lower one would be 1-1 across the 5th fret, ring finger on the 7th fret, pinky on the 8th fret. Or it's kind of like making a D chord, but instead of 1, 2, and 3, you make it with 2, 3, and 4, and then just grab that 4th string. Okay. For this, even though that's the lowest root in the position, it's so close, we're going to borrow that 6th string root, 3rd fret. Okay. So that one's going to start on the 3rd fret, 6th string. Measures. Frets, 6 and 7. 5, 7. Index finger on the 5th string. 5th fret of the 4th string, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place today, guys. And then you're just going to drag your middle finger over to that 6th fret on the 6th string. Pull off to the 5th fret and move back. So there's... I forgot about one on the... See? I'm all over the place. Each of them have 2. The A shape... That's the first one, sorry. Second one is gonna go starting at that 7th fret on the 4th string, 3rd string. Wow. Can I just start over? Don't have time. Let's keep going. So that one's gonna kind of, I like to jump back and slide in, but you can hammer. 6 into 7, 5, 7, and then sliding up to 10. 6, 5, 7. And then the other one for D would be middle finger on the 4th string, 5th fret, sliding 3rd fret into 4th fret, stretching up to the 7th fret. Then we have 5th fret and 8th fret. Coming in back down sets us up nicely to put our pinky on the 8th fret of the 4th string, pulling to the 7th fret, and then we got the 5th fret. So let me just play those couple slow, and then we'll play them and get some tracks. So again, the first one is for the D with the A shape. And the higher one starts on the 3rd string. And then G is going to start down below like it's in the E shape. Then it's going to hop up. Middle finger on the 5th fret of the 4th string. I'm sorry. You guys are probably wondering, does this guy even know what he's talking about? Yeah, I do. Yeah, for generally speaking, for the most part, but apparently, you know, nobody's perfect all the time. So those are the two shapes that are going to line up. Let's put it against the track. Hopefully you got these under your fingers from last week. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I gotta do it again. Sorry. get the idea. All right, I guess my problem is lack of focus. It's not that I can't play it, it's just lack of focus, guys. We're all guilty of that every now and then. That's exercise 2. That's taking the A shape, going to the G shape. If we go after the A shape comes the G shape. So up at the 10th fret. This is the last one we haven't discovered yet, or played today. So after this, all the other shapes will already have been used for the other key. But if we got our in open position, you got a G chord, that's your 1 chord. That means your 4 chord is C. Not gonna be any different. We just already went over the C shape, which only has 1 riff. So the D shape or G shape will have 2. So again, we're gonna start with our pinky at the 10th fret of the 6th string. You can hammer, you can slide into that note from the 8 to 9. Whatever's clever. You got 7 and 9 going on the 10th fret. Okay, so that's, you're gonna go to the 8th fret, pull off to the 7th fret, and then go down your pinky. That's gonna be the lower one. Next one starts on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Hop back. So I like to use my first finger twice there. Up to your pinky on the 10th fret. Then after that, we're gonna roll back straight across the 10th fret on the 3rd string, pull it back into 9, and then we got that 7th fret. As far as voicings for the G shape can go, you can always, my next level triad course is a good thing to check out, but you can always break these up into 3-string voicings. The 2 I recommend are 4-string, so you got ring finger, and then barring 7th fret on strings 4, 3, and 2, or you can take that same bar, 4, 3, and 2, and then add your pinky on the top string. Not all the cage shapes are meant to be voicings. This one's really nice. I always like to point out, you'd see Hendrix, like if you're coming from the A shape, kind of rolling your ring finger over to that same fret that it was just barring, but on the 5th string, and then sliding into the 9th fret. Then all of a sudden you have that G shape inversion, which everybody loves, working out of that classic position. So that's gonna be great. All right, so. Then we'll go to the C shape for the G. And that one only has 1, so let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. kind of mess around, clearly. Okay, so that's how the G shape and the C shape line up for 1 to 4. Again, all we're playing all day is just D to G, okay? But now we're doing it all over the entire neck and every shape, exactly how it lines up. And the beauty of that is it doesn't matter what key you're in. If you're going A to D, if you're going, you know, B flat to E flat, you just put the capo down and you make those shapes. It's always going to be G shape to C shape if you're trying to go. If you start with a G shape and that's your 1 chord, you want to go to the 4 chord, doesn't matter what key you're in, it's always going to be the C shape. So these are very, you know, it seems like a little bit of a task, but if you can really just like digest this, you've inadvertently learned every 1 to 4 ever. So, you know, can't always get what you want. Feelin' Alright, there's a whole bunch of tunes. Every song, generally speaking, a lot of songs have a 1 chord and a 4 chord. They might not always go back to back, but now you've practiced them, so that's great. Okay, we got 2 more positions before we talk about bonus material today. Hopefully I didn't rush too fast through this. Probably did. I want to put it past me. But again, the concept's simple enough. The exercises are generally simple enough where if you need to go back and practice just the 1 chord from last week, these 2 will make a lot more sense. But you get to practice it next week and the week after that as well. So stick with me. We just did the G shape. So after the G shape is the E shape. We already did that for the E. Okay, I just got to make 2 notes. I think I'm going to remember. Don't let me forget. Great. So remember there's 2 with the G shape. I'm sorry, with the E shape. If you make an E chord and you want to go to your 4 chord, like for instance, For What It's Worth, Buffalo Springfield. Sorry. E to A. It's just an E to A. So this is going to be E to A. 1 to 4 all day. The A shape, we decided we had 2. We got starting on that 10th fret. Another one starting on the 3rd string, 10th, 12th fret. All the way up to 15. So some of you might ask, why this lame little lick over and over and over again? Well, I'll tell you why. A, it's outlining the major pentatonic perfectly, and it's also resolving on the roots and kind of dealing with that minor third, major third thing, minor third into the second. These are all very good vocabulary things rhythmically placed within the bar to be able to execute and kind of to make it sound like you're outlining the changes. You don't have to always play like this. Again, we're going to have a little time to explore in a second. But hopefully it kind of points out the obvious. One of the things, here, I'll deviate for a split second. One of the things I wanted to point out that I don't think I did is kind of traveling up the neck. So for instance, if we're on that G chord, we haven't gone all the way up there yet, but anything that can be played here can be shifted up 5 frets and start on the next ring. So that, for instance, this E shape can then get transferred to the C shape that we just did, which will, when we get there in a second, it's going to transfer the G shape. So it's really good to kind of point out that redundancy of the guitar so that it's not so much of a mystery. Okay, so we got those 2 shapes. We're lining up the E with the A. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. What? Sorry. I was going to point out, when you're up in this area right here, a full bar chord is less and less practical. So it might make sense to really stick to some of the smaller voicings. Okay. That's not why I made a mistake, but I'm glad I did make a mistake so I could point that out. Yep. I got too much on my mind, guys. My apologies. This is very unprofessional. Let's try it again. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. 2, 3, 4. One more time. Okay, we got one more position and then we're good on the exercises for today. Again, just playing those through, seeing how they line up is a good way to kind of get the good feel for it. Let's explore in a second. Next position, last position is going to be the D shape. Again, technically it's off the E here, but if we're thinking D, it's kind of up here. And we got another one at the 12th fret with our middle finger. Okay, and then it's going to line up with the G shape. Anytime you got a D chord, you want to go to your 4 chord, it's going to be a G. Early in the morning, what I got Sublime, all day this stuff applies. So it's a little dry, but like you're inadvertently learning a poop ton of songs. Okay, so with the G shape, we're starting up at the 15th fret. All right. And then we got another one at the 12th fret of the 3rd string. Same shapes that we use for D. Now we're just using them for G. Let's just jump right in. Again, you can go back and practice. You can reconfirm it next week and the week after too. Plenty of time to get this down. 1, 2, starting on D. Shape. Okay, so that concludes the 5 exercises I want you to work on this week for each different position. Now let's talk about other things that you can and should be doing with it, because that's fine. You could do 1 a day and you still have 2 days off. You know, there's more time, hopefully, in your schedule to do a little more. So let's talk about what that could be. So, for instance, maybe it just makes sense to just line up the chord shapes. It definitely does. And just play over these backing tracks and just do each one. So let's see if we can go through that really quick. I'm going to go up through one position at a time, basically. So we'll start with the C, just for quick reminders, but I'll call them out as we go. C is going to line up with the E shape. Okay? A is going to line up with the D shape. Okay? G is going to line up with the C shape. E is going to line up with the A shape. And finally, the D shape is going to line up with the G shape. Okay? So I'm going to go through each one, and then I'll even talk about other things you can do to expand upon that to make it even stronger. 1, 2, 3, C. Going to E shape. A shape. Going to D shape. Sorry, it's hard to talk. Play this. G shape. Going to C shape. Going to E shape. I'm not. What the heck happened? I don't know how I got off there. You get the idea. Boy, you get the idea. I don't know what happened. So that E shape's gonna go to the A shape, and you get the idea. You're gonna go D to the G shape. My apologies that didn't line up with the recording. I don't know where I got off. 4 bars each. Should be simple. I don't know why I couldn't get it. If I had a second chance, I'd do it. But you know what? We're just gonna move on. I think you get the idea. You should take the time to do it, just so you see those chord changes. Especially like when you're on 1, can you play D to G, thinking about those shapes, but also thinking about the shape right above it? Do you see the A shape and the D shape ready to go? Do you see the G shape and the C shape ready to go? E shape and A shape. D shape and E shape. G shape, I should say. Okay, so that's like block, 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 block. But then can you really get to flow? So for instance, since there's 2 bars each, and I'll try this again, hopefully I won't screw it up. You could focus on 2 adjacent positions and kind of jump back and forth. So you can split up the 4 bars between the 2 and then resolve to whatever one you're on. So for instance, 2 different groups just going back and forth would be like this. 2, 3, 4. Now that's going to resolve to... Oh, you know what? What? What is going on? I know what he's doing wrong. Amateur. I'm thinking 2 bars. Oy vey. Go to the E shape there. Going to E shape below. Okay, so you can kind of just go back and forth between 2 positions. You jump to the next chord within it. Then you resolve to the nearest one to your 4 chord G. So then you jump back to the other G. That other G is closest to this, and so you move back and forth. So that's the idea. You can do the next position. okay? You can also just keep going up the neck. So like, and then resolve where you ever happen to be. I'm gonna go up to the G. You can kind of just dance around and have a lot of fun. You can also do that with the licks too, like. I'm just messing around. You get the idea. You want to be able to flow. You want to be able to see the next position while you're still on the position you are on, so that you don't trip over yourself. And that's when you really know you have this. And that's when you know you can really start to outline these changes. What we're doing is we're playing the major pentatonic over these changes, which is a very specific sound. There are other sounds to choose from, and we will talk about this. Actually, the combining major and minor pentatonic, the course I just finished, that's a really great thing to apply to this too. We'll talk about more about that as we progress through the course. That's something I could recommend, that as we're applying, I don't want you to overwhelm yourself, but like for instance, as we're applying this C shape going to the E shape, you can always take the one chord's minor, and that would apply over the whole thing. And so both the C shape pentatonic over D and the E shape pentatonic over G, and then D minor over any of it will sound great. I'm getting ahead of ourselves. So the major pentatonic is a very specific sound, but that's actually what kind of sounds like you're outlining the changes. It's not to say those other notes aren't great either, but it's just when you only use the major pentatonic kind of like this, that's when it sounds like you're hitting the changes. If there's dominant chords or anything like that, then obviously you need to throw sevenths in there. We're just talking triads, major triads at this point. So I want to talk about lining up the pentatonic scales. There was one thing, different key, one note between different, yeah. Yep, that's pretty much it. So when lining up the one chord going to the four chord, you're kind of thinking, okay, I got to remember this shape. But if you really know the neck and you know the theory, for instance, if you compare a D major pentatonic, which is D, E, F sharp, A, and B, and then you directly compare that into a G major pentatonic, which is G, A, B, D, E, there's only one note difference. The F sharp in the D major pentatonic goes up a half step to G. Now all of a sudden it's a G major pentatonic. So right now you're probably thinking, okay, I got to memorize the C shape and then I got to go to the E shape. But if you kind of know the neck and you know your theory, if you know what you're looking for, especially if you're only really living in one key, you're just looking for F sharps going to Gs, that's helpful, right? So this is the full pentatonic for the C shape. And when you go to here, that's the E shape for the four chord, the G chord. Three notes change. They're all F sharps going up a half step. You got one on the 6th string, 2nd fret, as well as the 1st string, as well as on the 4th string, and then you just move them up a half step. And then all of a sudden, it's a completely new scale, right? So sometimes it's a little overwhelming. You don't necessarily see that right off the bat. Especially most players who practice scales tend to always go back to the beginning, right? So if you're mid position, you're kind of stranded, right? You're not really paying attention to where you're at. Speaking of not really paying attention, me today. So what's beneficial for this, if you really want to see how these pentatonics line up and kind of have a little fun with them, is to take 3 strings, maybe 4. We'll talk 3 for a split second. For instance, top 3 in this first position. This is where I spend most of my time. It's just kind of lining these up and just really thinking about the one note that changes. Obviously, you still want to hit roots, which if you're these riffs are still under your fingers and you're still kind of seeing it. Hopefully that outlines it. But when you go to the 4 chord, the root is that note, G. And then it goes down a half step and resolves to the 3rd of the 1 chord, D, F sharp. Okay? So, for instance, if we take the top 3 strings, the C shape position would go 2, 4, 5, what? 2, 4, 3, 5, 2, 5. Then if you compare that to the E shape one, it would go 2, 4, 3, 5, 3, 5. So really it's just the 2nd fret on the 1st string goes up 1 fret. That's the only thing that's changing. Okay. So again, these are all extra credit things that we're talking about right now, but this is the stuff that really drives it home. So I'm gonna put that on, and I'm just gonna improv for a split second. Got plenty of time. Again, you want to be thinking about sliding into the 3rd. So there's a major 3rd here. It just tends to outline it a little better. Here's what that would sound like. 1, 2, 3. Just trying to land that on the downbeat. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You just have to be able to see where those notes are and resolve to it. Then you can take the next group. Next group would be 2, 4, 2, 4, 3, 5. And then the only note is going to be changing is the 4th fret on the 4th string is going to go up to the 5th fret. You know, so it would make sense to kind of just spend like one day really focusing on each string group, maybe several days. You know, there's only these 5 positions, so it's like, it doesn't matter how long you take. There's only 6 chords. If you can get really good at 6 chords in 5 positions with the same shapes over and over and over again, you will you can play the changes. That's what we're going for. So you know, that's just one more thing to think about, is just lining up those 2 pentatonics, having a little fun with it, just seeing the one note that resolves. Eventually you want to have a lot of fun and just really expand. Really expand into all 6 strings, you know, within a position. Then you got another position, then you got another position, then you got another position. It's those layering that's really going to help. And again, it might seem tedious, but this resolution back and forth is the same in every key. So, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about really quick before we take on some questions. But it's also 1 to 4 is exactly the same as 1 to 5 in another key. So for instance, right now we're playing D to G, which is technically 1 to 4 in the key of D. But if you analyze it from the key of G's perspective, it's 1 to 5. So when we go to practice the 5 chord, which is next week's thing, we've inadvertently already worked on those same 2 shapes lining up in every position. We'll be in a different key, but it's still going to be the same shapes. They're just going to be on a different spot on the neck, technically. Because 1 to 5 would be D to A, But again, it's the same shapes over and over and over and over again. Okay, so you want to line them up in each position. You want to take them a couple strings at a time. You want to play the chords. You want to point out the redundancy. You want to try it in different keys. So with the remaining time, I'm just going to go through the same exact exercises. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about, is kind of placing these positions, just reviewing how to place the positions. And then we'll talk about changing the keys, because that's appropriate. You need to know how to place them in order to find the new key, right? So, caged, C, A, G, E, and D, there's 5 positions. C and A are going to be based off of the 5th string. So for instance, let's say we're looking for a G chord. Here's a G on the 5th string. If you place your pinky on it, it's a C shape. If you place your middle finger on that same note, it's the A shape. So the C shape and the A shape will share that same target note. So the faster you can find a note on the 5th string, the faster you can place the C and the A shape. Okay. Likewise, same deal on the 6th string. The G and the E shape will share the same note. So for instance, let's say we wanted a B. We're not even in that key, but we really want a B. E, F, G, A, B. There it is right there. If you place your pinky on it, that's going to be the G shape below it. Above it, or kind of parallel with it, is going to be the E shape. So that's where you place your middle finger on it if you're playing the scale. Or your first finger if you're barring it, obviously. That's minor pentatonic. That's something completely different. So again, C and A are based off of the same note on the 5th string. G and E are based off of the same note on the 6th string. And the D shape is technically based off of the 4th string, but I kind of like to think of it how it based off the E shape almost, just 2 frets above on the 4th string. I always, like, anytime I'm doing this shape, I always think, like, if, for instance, this was on the 3rd fret, then you go to the 5th fret, you know, you go dots, 3, 5, 7, you're up at the D shape, or C shape, depending on how you want to think of it. So connecting individual things, let's recap all the fun extra things you can do. Bare minimum requirement are these licks, the 5 exercises in the key of D, just so you start to see how these line up. You can look out for redundant notes. You can hop between different positions, which I definitely recommend. It helps you expand the neck. It's one thing to get each one of these individually. It's another thing to be able to flow. Like, the goal is not to just stick in one of these positions. The goal is to go all day, and then even just playing chords behind somebody becomes immediately more communicative. You can have a conversation, and just exciting. There's just more going on than just, you know. Anyway, so jumping between positions and eventually flowing across the whole neck is the goal. So then, you know, working on 2 adjacent positions at a time is a good way to start that expansion. Just practicing the chords and seeing how those line up and comping the chords. Maybe you got a buddy you can work with so you can play the chords and they can do solo over it, and then you can solo while they play the chords. That's an option. Lining up 3 strings at a time within position to see the one note that changes. Sometimes it's 2, like for instance, well, you need, yeah, it could possibly happen. There's one position where that would work, where you'd have 2 notes. It's the same note but within an octave that changes within 3 strings. More likely, sometimes 4 strings are a little more funnish, because you can kind of, you know, for instance, this E shape right here for the G chord, you got 2 roots, and so like as I was playing, it's really tempting to resolve it there. Anyway, and then the final thing that I didn't even get to, but I will right now for a couple of seconds and a couple minutes, and then we'll get into it, is applying these shapes to a different key. Okay, so exercise 1 starts with the D shape. If we want to, we'll go to the key of G, just so we literally just practiced finding G chords across the entire neck and how they layer with D. So now we're going to use the G shapes that we just applied, but we're going to treat them as the 1 chord, okay? So for instance, in exercise, 3 today, the G shape for the D chord will line up with the C shape for the G chord. But now G's are 1, which is with the C shape, would be, again, just how it did here, would be the E shape. So that's going to line up with C here, okay? So I'll play through that one really quick, and then we'll try to do the couple others. So here it is in the key of G. 1, 2, starting with G shape. Going to E. Next one be the A shape, right? That's gonna go to the C shape, D shape, sorry. Sorry. So if you did, G shape's gonna line up with the C shape. Try to expand on the lick, don't just play it. Try to dance around 2 licks in the same register. So for instance, yeah, that's pretty much, you get the idea. So we just did G and C, so now with E and that's gonna line up with the A. So much that can be done with just this simple concept, and the more you do, the better you'll get it. So that being said, let's see if we got any questions. Well, hello there, folks. I am Ghost of Christmas Past, ready to take some questions. We're Halloween's past. I don't want to jump ahead in the seasons. Let's see if we got any, though. Can you briefly touch on how you are picking these shapes? I assume you mean right-hand picking, as opposed to just Oh, I don't know. I don't. Yes, right hand picking. Okay, thank you. So, as far as the lick goes, it's generally based on alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down, up, up. I'm sorry, down, up, down, down, up, down. So that would be down, up, down if you pick it, but then you need to accommodate for any hammers or pulls, slides, whatever. So down, up, down, down, up, down. Yeah, that basically does it. Scott, Imagine, would like to know, as I understand it, there are 3 ways of approaching improv. Key center, just the way to just play the pentatonic of the key. Change the pentatonic for each new chord, and specifically the chord tones for each one. And are we focusing on number 2 so far? Yeah, so actually, when number 1, I wouldn't just play major pentatonic as like the key. Basically what we're doing is whatever the chord is, we're playing that pentatonic scale. If it goes to a D minor chord, we play a D minor pentatonic. If it's a D major, we play a D major pentatonic. If it's an A major, we play an A major pentatonic. Okay? As far as general one stop fix all there, you got a minor pentatonic, which would work over a whole progression, which is slightly different. And then you have just the straight up major scale, which would apply to the whole thing. Again, that major scale is technically 3 different pentatonic scales added together. And so that's what we're doing. We're building the major scale 1 pentatonic at a time. And so, yes, we are primarily focusing on number 2. Again, number 2 is outlining the pentatonic scale, which inadvertently 3/5 of the pentatonic scale is the triad. So I like I was mentioning in that email, like, again, you can think of just even lower, meaning just the cage notes, or even just starting with roots and fifths, just seeing where those roots kind of go. So you can kind of begin to see it in layers. That's what we're shooting for. And when you do that, it'll help those pentatonics make even more sense, especially when you compare it directly from the 1 chord to the 6th chord when we do the minor positions. Anyway, so we're thinking of just pentatonic specifically. That's per chord. That's the general gist of the chorus. Cool. P. Simone, how do you recommend visualizing these shapes? Do you think of the chord shapes and how they relate? Yeah. That's specifically why I'm having you comp. Honestly, this course is more about lining up the pentatonics and being able to play the changes. So playing the changes can inadvertently play in the chord. So like you can just focus the whole time. You can do that if you want. That's a good thing to do. But by playing the chord, again, back to Imagine's question, it's if you're seeing the chord, the 1, 3, 5, as slightly darker, we'll say, on the neck, slightly more highlighted than the rest of the other 2 pentatonic notes, then hopefully those pentatonic shapes will make even more sense too. And again, there's only 5. So even if you've not really seen it just yet, you will. Just keep on keeping on, you know what I'm saying? So what would you do if you want to go to the 5 chord? Well, hauling boats. Dude. Now, first of all, just looking at that name, it's a dope name, but saying it out loud when it's like kind of a play on hauling notes, I think Smith, can we get that guy a prize? That's probably the best name I've seen on here. No offense to anybody else. But yeah, so what would you do if you want to go to the 5 chord? Well, that's a wonderful question. We're going to do it next week. The week after that, we're going to put 1, 4, and 5 all together. So next week is just the 1 chord and the 5 chord. Which, as I explained, for instance, this week we did 1 to 4. So it was D to G. But in the key of G, which I also have those backing tracks in this class, you can practice 1 to 5 this week, which is literally G to D. Instead of D to G, it's now G to D. It's literally the same 2 chords, but now the tonal center has changed. So by practicing that this week, you're inadvertently learning it, but eventually we'll just see it. A little sneak preview: if you're in the C shape, you go to the 4 chord is the E shape, and then the G shape is going to be your 5 chord in that position. So yeah, you just need to find one more cage. There's always going to be one of the 5 cage shapes under your fingers for whatever chord you're trying to play, whether it's major or minor. We're not getting into 7th chords or any of that funny business this time around. Although I do like to think the major pentatonic. I go off on tangents. I kind of like to show you the general path that I'm thinking about down the road. Major pentatonic is a great way to outline chord changes. It's not technically major 7, it's not technically minor 7. But if you add a flat 7 into the mix, so instead of, let's say we're in the key of D, which we are all day, so normally we go up to here, but if we add that flat 7 in the mix, now all of a sudden it's dominant. So you can take what you've already learned, this major pentatonic, which we're throwing down pretty hard on, and eventually you just add one note to each of those 5 positions, and all of a sudden you're straight up outlining dominant 7 chords, which, that's the goal. A blues is a 1-4-5, but they're all dominant 7 chords, meaning they're all the 5 chord in another key. So it's hard to just play one scale over it, one Mixolydian scale, or the minor pentatonic will sound great over a blues. But if you want to sound like you're actually playing the chord that's going by, it's good to think of each chord as like a major pentatonic plus a minor 7. You can also think Mixolydian too for each one of them. But again, Mixolydian's 7 notes, where this is also 7 notes, but you're kind of basically just focusing around the chord. I'm sure it's what I'm getting at is convoluted, but basically we're sticking to the major pentatonic. Anyway, I'm rambling. That's all we got for questions. Hopefully you're digging it. Hopefully you're having fun. Again, we're going to drive it home again next week, so this is just going to we're just going to basically have the same lesson over and over and over again, but strategically placing it so that you get a whole bunch of miles out of very few things. Cool, guys? Cool. We'll see you next week.